No one to blame for natural disasters. We chalk them up as acts of God. Other times, they can be chalked up as acts of human incompetence, negligence, or good old-fashioned stupidity.
America, we just uncovered potentially one of the most damning government cover-ups in California history. The deadly Palisades fires that killed 12 people and destroyed over 6,800 structures could have been completely prevented if state officials had done their job. New video evidence shows embers smoldering for days while residents called 911 begging for help, and nobody came. But here's the shocking part. Federal investigators claim the fire was undetectable, while we have clear video proof showing smoke raising from the ground for nearly a week before the disaster happened.
It's 11:30 a.m. on January 2nd. A hiker atop the Pacific Palisades films smoldering brush.
What is up, guys? Tyson DeLaCruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. This story perfectly exposes how Gavin Newsom's administration failed its citizens, tried to cover up their negligence, and is now facing massive lawsuits for the victims who lost everything. Let me show you the evidence that completely destroys the government narrative. On January 2nd, 5 days before the Palisades Fire exploded, a hiker filmed a video showing embers clearly smoldering in a burn scar from the original Lanchman fire.
Officials allege that 36 hours earlier, Jonathan Rinderneck deliberately set fire in the Palisades. Fire teams responded and put out what was called the Lockman fire.
So on January 1st, this alleged arsonist, Jonathan Rinderneck, set the original Lanchman fire. Fire teams responded and claimed they put it out. But this video from January 2nd shows the fire was still smoldering underground, and it continued to smolder for 5 more days until the catastrophic winds on January 7th turned it into the deadliest fire in LA's history.
6 days later, on January 7th, the fire reignited and would become the Palisades Fire, the worst in LA's history, taking 12 lives and over 6,800 structures. On October 7th, the feds claimed that after the original fire was declared fully contained, neither firefighters nor the public could see smoldering embers.
But here's where California's government story falls apart completely. Federal officials claimed that on October 7th that the fire was deeply seated and continued to burn undetected. And they said neither firefighters nor public could see the smoldering embers. That is a complete lie, and we have video proof.
But this new video shows the fire still smoldering, not a hose or fire crew in sight.
When we heard the federal officials announce that the Lockman fire embers continue to burn undetected, we knew that that wasn't accurate. And
not a hose in sight or a fire crew in sight, you guys. California government abandoned this smoldering fire, then lied about it being undetectable when they got caught. But it gets worse, much, much worse. Attorney Michael Castillo represents the victims who are now suing the state, and he revealed that people actually called 911 about the smoke and nobody dispatched to investigate.
And several people contacted us and said, we have video of smoldering embers in the ground in the burn scar of the Lockman fire. And as with the reports we received prior to that, we looked at the video, and sure enough, you can see smoke coming out of the ground.
Multiple people contacted attorneys with video evidence of smoldering embers, but more importantly, people were calling 911 to report the smoke, and dispatch refused to send anybody out.
It's my understanding that not only did your clients go up there and see smoke coming out of the ground, they called 911.
And ultimately, we know that no one was dispatched to the area to investigate in response to those 911 calls.
Think about that for a second. Citizens were doing their civic duty, calling 911 to report smoke coming from the ground in a recent burned area. California government response was essentially, we don't care. No one was dispatched, no one investigated, and 5 days later, that smoldering fire exploded into the deadliest wildfire in LA history. Now, a veteran LA Fire Department whistleblower has come forward with explosive allegations allegations that completely contradict the official narrative. This firefighter, who has been with the department for decades, says the Palisades fire could have been completely, absolutely prevented if leadership had followed standard protocol.
A new twist in the Palisades Fire investigation, and another one. A whistleblower inside LAFD is questioning why critical heat detection equipment used for years to detect lingering heat underground was not deployed before that fire ignited.
This whistleblower revealed that LA Fire Department has had some thermal imaging technology for over 20 years that's specifically designed to detect underground hotspots that can't be seen with the naked eye. And guess what? They didn't use it.
This FLIR is a tool that we use to see hotspots that we cannot see visually during the daytime, especially when you have so much overgrowth. This is an absolute necessity tool that we've had for 20 years plus.
Would that have prevented the Palisades fire?
Absolutely.
Would that have prevented the Palisades fires? Absolutely. Those are the words of a veteran firefighter who knows exactly what could have been done. They had the technology, they had the time, 7 full freaking days, and they chose not to do anything about it.
If you have infrared cameras showing hotspots that we can't see with the naked eye, we would be able to put those out. Now, we had 7 days to do that. 7 full days until this fire broke out. To rekindle.
7 days, you guys. They had 7 full days to use their thermal imaging equipment to find and extinguish those underground hotspots. Instead, they abandoned the site and let it smolder until catastrophic winds turned it into a disaster. When confronted with this whistleblower's allegations, the LA Fire Department issued the most pathetic statements that I've ever seen from a government agency trying to cover up their tracks.
Holdover fires can be nearly impossible to detect with infrared imaging, as smoldering often occurs deep below the surface, especially in chaparral terrain where dense root systems conceal residual heat. Under extreme winds, low humidity, and prolonged drought, these fires can reignite despite full suppression and containment efforts.
Nearly impossible to detect with infrared imaging, but their own promotional videos show them using thermal cameras on drones to detect exactly these kinds of hotspots. The department literally promotes this technology on their website.
Those red embers hide under that surface and you can't see them. Well, what the thermal camera on these drones allows us to do is pan that area and see those hotspots.
So the department promotes videos showing their thermal cameras can detect hidden hotspots. But when they were caught not using that technology, they claim it is nearly impossible, they said, to detect underground fires. Which is it? The whistleblower put it perfectly. This department takes zero accountability, points the finger to everybody else. We have hardworking men and women, boots on the ground, doing the best that they can, but we are handcuffed because of the management, the chief, the politics. Now let's talk about the alleged arsonist who started this whole disaster. Jonathan Renderneck, a 29-year-old who used to live in Palisades Highland, has been arrested and charged with federal arson crimes. Federal investigators say they found evidence that Jonathan fantasized about starting a huge fire, took pictures of the point of origin, and made incriminating statements to investigators. They also found that he generated AI images showing people fleeing from massive fires. But here's what's most important. Even though Jonathan started the original fire, the California government negligence is what turned this into a catastrophe. If they had potentially used their thermal imaging equipment, if they had responded properly to 911 calls about the smoke, if they had followed standard protocol, those 12 people would still be alive and 6,800 structures would still be standing. Now the victims are fighting back with a massive lawsuit against the state of California. Attorney Michael Castillo is representing families who lost everything, and he is making it clear that this disaster lies squarely on the state's shoulders. Try to shimmy that one away, Gavin Newsom.
To be clear, you're not pointing the finger at LA Fire Department, LA County Fire Department. You're saying this lies squarely on the state.
That's right. Because the fire rekindled on state land, and because the state had an obligation to go out and inspect its property.
The fire rekindled on state land, which means it's the state responsibility to monitor and maintain that properly. After reports of smoke coming from the ground and in the face of a red flag high wind warning, the state had an obligation to inspect its own land. But Governor Gavin Newsom's office is pushing back, claiming that the lawsuit is baseless and it wasn't the state's responsibility. They're trying to argue that the fire didn't begin on state land, which directly contradicts the ATF's final report. While victims are fighting the state for accountability, they're also battling another enemy, their own insurance companies. The California Fair Plan, which is supposed to be the insurer of last resorts for fire coverage, is denying claims for smoke damage.
And hundreds of homeowners say they still see no path to recovery. Some policyholders who still have homes but they are damaged and contaminated by smoke are seeing their claims denied. They feel the Fair Plan is acting in bad faith.
Lily Cathy's house is still standing, but she can only enter it wearing full PPE because toxic ash blew in during the fire. Testing show elevated levels of mercury and arsenic throughout her home, but the California Fair Plan sent her a letter saying they didn't observe any permanent damage resulting from smoke, ash, or soot.
Testing her attorney paid for shows just here in the living room the smoke impact is severe. So Lily believes nearly everything, including her favorite photo of her and her mom she shares this house with, is a loss.
Scott won't even enter his home because court documents say it contains heavy metals, lead. The Fair Plan offered him less than $10,000 to make the necessary repairs for a house that needs to be tore down to the studs. America, the Palisades Fire represents everything wrong with the government in California. State officials abandoning a smoldering fire, ignored 911 calls from concerned citizens, refused to use available technology, and then lied about being undetectable when they got caught. 12 people died, over 6,800 structures were destroyed, families lost everything, and it all could have been prevented if California government officials had simply done their job. Now those same officials are fighting lawsuits from victims while insurance companies deny legitimate claims for smoke damage. The victims are being failed on every level by the state that was supposed to protect them, by the fire department that was supposed to serve them, and by the insurance companies that were supposed to cover them. This is what happens when you have incompetent leadership more concerned with covering their tracks than protecting citizens. Gavin Newsom's administration failed catastrophically, and now they're trying to escape accountability while victims fight for basic justice. The whistleblower said it perfectly. This department takes zero accountability, points fingers at everybody else. That's California government in a nutshell. Zero accountability, maximum excuses, and the citizens pay the price. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.